Good afternoon, everyone, and you're all very welcome to CITA's Virtual Regional Week. My name is Suzanne Purcell, and I'm General Manager of CITA. We're delighted to have had such a successful week already. So far, this is now day 5, and we are delighted also with all the sponsors who have assisted us through all of 2020. On the sponsors for Regional Week, we've had Diatech, who's actually presenting today. Digital Construction Technologies Group, Evercam, they presented yesterday, I3PT and SIS, they presented on Monday and Tuesday. So without them, these events wouldn't be able to go ahead. So we're very grateful for all of their support. Just for those of you who are present today who aren't aware of CITA and haven't been involved in any of our events, just to give you a quick overview, CITA is in existence 20 years. It's a not-for-profit organisation, and the main I suppose activities that CITA are involved in is delivering high quality events and training, and we've been doing so for 20 years. So if you are not a member of CITA, membership of CITA is open to everybody, and membership of CITA allows you to attend monthly breakfast events, get a discount off the annual conference, and get a discount off the CITA SkillNet training list of courses. And we're delighted that we can confirm that we've received funding for 2021 from SkillNet Ireland for our training network. And if you aren't familiar with the events that were held in 2020 will be repeated again in terms of 2021 for the series that they are, but obviously the themes and topics will be different. So the Digital Transformation Series, the Technology Trend Series, the Regional Events, and the BIM Gathering is what the annual conference will be on in 2021. We are hoping that at least by Q3, some of these events will be able to be face-to-face. But if not, we will continue with running them virtually. And finally, just to say, all of our events are recorded. CITA does have its own YouTube channel. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, search for Construction IT Alliance when you go on to YouTube, and that way you will get notified for any new videos like today's or for any of the previous days from this week, they will be getting uploaded. So I'm going to pass you over to David Bourke now of GMIT, and I hope you all have a great event. Thanks a million.
Hello.
I can hear you.
We can hear you.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry, apologies. Okay. Now, how you doing? So, thank you, Suzanne. My name is David Bourke. I'm a lecturer in GMIT, so I'm just going to be chairing this meeting today, and I'll give you a brief rundown of what's going on in GMIT in the BIM space, and a very quick run through my own personal BIM journey, which might be relevant to some of you. So I'm just going to share my screen with you. Now, so as I say, my own name is David Bourke, and I'm an assistant lecturer in BIM in GMIT. Other speakers today include Cathal O'Donnell, he's a BIM manager with Stewart's Construction, Enda Gerathy, a BIM manager with John Siskin's son, and David Purdon, who is with Diatech. Just a little bit of housekeeping now before we get started. If you could keep your mics muted, please, and we will have time at the end for questions. But if a question comes to mind while we're chatting, you can enter it into the chat, and we can address it at the end. Okay. So I'm going to give a quick update on GMIT and BIM. So basically, if you're not familiar with GMIT, we're based in the west of Ireland. We have 4 campuses: Galway, Mount Bellew, Castlebar, and Letterfrack. GMIT encourages new research activities. It's driven by the academic staff, obviously, and researchers, but there's good ties with industry as well. Our Galway campus is the largest of the 4 campuses, and obviously a variety of courses which can be seen on our website. So just a little bit about myself. I'm new to the lecturing gig. I was lecturing part-time last year in GMIT, and I'm full-time since September. So I've really enjoyed it so far. It's been a very good move. Just a bit of my own background. I graduated from both LIT and GMIT. I was about 20 years as a BIM and CAD technician. Worked in Ireland, worked in Australia, New Zealand, So all over, I've worked on many different types of projects in different disciplines. But my own BIM journey, and I suppose it's not just about companies making the transition, people need to make that transition too. And very often that can kind of get forgotten. I think people are worried about companies making the transition, but individuals need to make that transition too. So I first learned of BIM when I was working in New Zealand in 2007, and the company I worked for there were called Becca, very large company. Also worked for them in Australia. They were starting to trial a few projects just using Revit, and it kind of piqued my interest, and I kept an eye on it for a few years. And once it started to kick off in Ireland, that's when I really started to kind of take notice. So I'm just going to quick timeline of my own BIM journey. So just briefly, way back in 2000, I graduated from LIT with a cert in engineering. A couple of years later, I went back and I did the BEng, or at the time would have been called a diploma. I moved on then to work in New Zealand and Australia, and that's really where my own BIM journey began. As I said, the company I worked for there called Becca were starting to trial a couple of projects just using Revit. Obviously, there was no collaboration or BIM 360 and things like that were a long way away, but it piqued my interest. Came back to Ireland, and obviously I came back to Ireland in 2008. There wasn't a whole heap going on, so I went back to LIT and I did a degree in civil engineering management. And there were at the time seeds of BIM creeping into courses, and I did my own dissertation in BIM. So it was just starting to get rolling in Ireland. In 2014, I did a course in architecture, 10-week course in LIT, very good course. And but really, my whole BIM story really kicked off in 2015 when I did the HDIP in engineering and BIM in GMIT. That was over 2 years, so I graduated in 2016. Very good course. I'll go into it a little bit more now in a few minutes. But that really started to filter into my working day then, that I was able to learn skills and apply them to jobs. I was with Malachy Walsh and Partners when I finished that course. So once I finished that course, we started to do more jobs in Revit, and we would have done a lot of wind farms. So the civil 3D element was very important. And ultimately, that course helped me to move up to the position of Dpd BIM Manager about almost 2 years ago now. And that was quite successful. But the opportunity came to lecture in GMIT part-time, and that has turned into a full-time position. So you can see there how I've taken baby steps, and clearly at some point there's been kind of points in which I've kicked on. But it's a journey that'll probably be familiar to a lot of you, and it's well worth taking. So on into the future. I suppose the next steps for myself will be a master's, and delving into other areas of BIM. Visual programming is something that really interests me, and so on. So that was my journey. So I suppose I'll move on and just give you a bit of an update on what's happening in GMIT at the moment. Like everybody else, we're dealing with COVID-19 as best we can, and it's been pretty successful. It's worked well. We've obviously moved to a blending learning model. A lot of the CAD modules now are roughly 50-50 online and on campus. The students seem to like it. They engage. Obviously, you need to structure your lessons a little differently, but I think everybody has adapted really well, and it's been good. So students now they have remote access to computers in the college to kind of limit their need to come to college. That's worked well. We have encouraged students to have their own laptop and have their own PC, but where that hasn't been possible, there is a scheme available to provide laptops to students. So between the virtual access and the laptop, we've made sure that everybody has access to the relevant CAD programs. This is the BIM team. I'm the newest member, so I'm sure any of you who have attended some of these events will be familiar with some of these people here. I'm just going to move on. So just to get into some of the courses offered by GMIT, the postgraduate course, the higher diploma in engineering in BIM, that's running at the moment. So we have 4 modules that need to be completed. First module being the virtual modeling fundamentals. So that is, everybody must do that. That is basically 10 credit module in Revit, and the basics you need to know about BIM. Then there's an elective module, so architecture, infrastructure, MEP, and structures. Personally, I did the infrastructure module, so that was a very good module and really helped me when I needed to apply the knowledge learned at work. The next module then everybody does is a collaboration module, very important, very useful, helps the students to see how different disciplines collaborate with each other, the documentation and software and processes needed for that. And then there's a 30 credit BIM research module, which is completed at the end. So there's a minor award available for all the 10 credit modules. And then once the 30 credit module, the BIM research module is complete, the level 8 is awarded. So there's just a couple of images there that have been created by students who have completed this course. So very high quality, and it's a very practical course, and you can really apply what you learn in work quite quickly. So I suppose the big new development is the postgraduate diploma in building information management and digital construction. This has been developed at the moment, so the modules aren't 100% tied down, but we're looking to launch this in September 2021. So that'll be the postgraduate diploma will start then, and then the following year, anybody moving on to the masters will start in September 2022. We'll be looking into areas of visual programming, collaboration, which will be taking a step on from the HDIP, digitization, and oh, sorry, I'm gone blank there. But as I said, it isn't 100% tied down what the modules are just yet. And then obviously in our undergrad courses, we provide BIM modules. So our architectural, our construction, our QSs, our civil students all undertake modules in BIM. So they all do a bit of Revit, some AutoCAD, and then there are discipline-specific programs like Costex and Robot that students will study. Just a couple of examples again of work produced by the students in those courses. So that's what's going on in GMIT at the moment. I hope you found that useful. So we're going to, I'll just stop sharing my screen there now. And I'm just going to introduce Cathal O'Donnell, who's the BIM manager with Stewart's Construction. And if Cathal would like to start sharing his screen. Okay.
Yeah, I hope you can see that. Thank you, David.
Yeah, thank you, Cathal. Yeah, we can see that.
Okay. First of all, I am just thankful for CitA for even just letting us take part in this discussion, just to showcase what we're doing in the industry at the moment. So I'd like to thank them for that. So I'm going to quickly go through just a few things that we've been working on here in Stewart's. Just when COVID-19 came up, we tried to focus as much as we can on a digital workflow in the jobs that we do. So anything that progresses that workflow and makes it easier for site teams, designers, and our design build teams to mitigate any issues, that's what we try to push on with. So from my point of view, I started this process back in May when COVID was we were all kind of locked down. So the thing was to come up with solutions to the problems that were fired at everyone in the company. So as you know, the sites had to be very well regulated on COVID issues, and our teams did very well to to implement on their safety procedures, health and safety. So from my point of view then was to come up with solutions digitally, and we have models based on most of our work at the moment. So the way I kind of approached it was to take Rivet models and see what we could do with them. And after I did that, it developed into other processes that we found really useful on our sites anyways. So I'd just like to share them with you. So I'm going to skip on ahead. Just the topics I'm going to cover. I'm just conscious of time. I'm going to just make sure and stick it as close as I can. So how Rivet can help the AEC professionals calculate, track and record COVID-related issues on site. So that's for our whole design team and ourselves as main contractors. We've also used Google spreadsheets that we've based on our Rivet schedules to calculate a few things for us. That's for really non-Rivet users. Sometimes people on site or even the general public might find this useful. GDPR considerations when you're dealing with COVID, I'll cover that. And how do we get data that we need? That's an important one. How do you actually collect the data? A new use for our CDE, Common Data Environment, and the QR codes. It's a different process we're using for this issue. Tracking staff and visitors on site, of course, that's very important for a main contractor. And then 3D cameras and how they can be used to help in the COVID fight. So then I'll just conclude with a very quick statement at the very end. So this first video that is going to play here is to do with Rivet. So it's basically a very basic model that we created in Rivet. It's just simple rooms, and the rooms are contained first floor and ground floor. And what we've done is we created schedules in this model, and the schedules are just based on the occupancy loads for rooms. So this schedule has a lot of parameters inside in the filters and the formatting to help us calculate our room areas efficiently without having to manually put in the numbers for new projects that come on board. So just as this video is playing, you can see in the schedules, it's going to go into what's in some of the schedules. It's got a lot to do with the mathematical formulas that help create the occupancy of each room. So I'm just going to pause it there for a second. So in the first A column, you'll have what level the room is on. Obviously, then you'll have the department, room number, and name. Then you'll have the general Rivet room areas. And the third, or the next column over, is a personal space defined by ourselves. So that personal space is, let's say, 2 square meters or in circumference around a person. And then we multiply it by a factor, which gives us our square meters of allowable space per person. The next column over is the maximum of people then is calculated automatically by the schedule that should be in that room area alone. And the next column over here is the actual occupancy. So that I'll talk a little bit more in detail of that occupancy as we progress on. That's an important one, the orange column to keep an eye on. The next column over will be the current area occupied. So that's, again, the schedule takes care of all this maths and stuff that you don't have to manually put in yourself. And it's just important to keep an eye on how many people are meant to be in a room or on a level or in the building. So generally designers do all this for room occupancy for their designs, architects. But for our main contractor, we want to count the amount of people coming in and off the site. So we've set up a process how we can count the people using QR codes, and then we write them QR codes back into the model. So that occupancy, actual occupancy load table sheet schedule is really important for the next process that we'll go into. So I'm not going to go into any big detail on how the schedules work. I'm going to attach the Rivet files to links, and I can provide them to anyone who wants them in the comments, so you can test out the model itself and see does it work for you. You can have your own project and you can bring the schedules in by inserting the schedules which might be the quickest and easiest way for you to adapt these kind of schedules into your process. So that what's happening here is, I'll just click on a little bit. So the schedules will show red or green whether or not there is overloading of a floor plate. So as you can see here, I've got the occupancy schedule. I'll play again. So if the numbers of people who are actually on the floor plate exceed the number of people in the schedule, the D column here will turn red. So that in itself will help sorry, 1 second, I'll just scroll back a bit. That in itself will help see how many floor plates are overloaded. So you can see them turning green and red, yes and no, here in these columns. So I based the schedules, if you look at the Rivet side of it, I based the schedules on room areas and also area plans. So there's 2 schedules there on area plans. And then that means you can quickly create sheets. So this is to do with the room areas itself. And by looking at the schedules above, as the designer, you can quickly see that there's too many people on the floor plate. So you call site and you tell them, take those people off that floor plate. There's too many COVID-19 restriction has been breached. So that's the main point of these Rivet models to develop. Now, the next part of the video, I'm just going to explain that you can also do this in Dynamo. And I'm not an expert in Dynamo. I've done all these schedules just using the basic functions. Sorry, let's go back. Apologies for that. I just skip back to the video and just jump ahead. So you can do all that in Dynamo, but what the main thing to consider is you really want to do it in a method that everyone can use in Rivet. So that's why I've produced these schedules for yourselves. Now there's also add-ins that you have in Rivet that can be used, like the D-Roots add-in. And the D-Roots add-in would be a very good add-in for getting the occupancy of the sites back into the model using the Excel export and import process. So again, I'm not going to go into that. It's described in this video later on. So if you want the videos, you can watch the videos going forward. So just to skip on to the next section. Dynamo, as I mentioned, I've looked online. There's a lot of scripts out there. This script in particular just takes elements from the model, as in seating. It gives its own distance around them and just tells you how many people can sit in that room, per se. The next one in is the generative design. Autodesk themselves have came up with an add-in that basically takes elements in the model and places them on floor plates based on the space requirements due to COVID-19. So you can imagine these are just tables, but you can also put in generic model of people or entourage people, and that'll help you to calculate on a big floor plate and multiple buildings how many people should be in that building. But that's more for a design aspect, not necessarily for during the construction aspect of the job. So I'm going to skip on again. So in order to help this process, I've also exported those Rivet schedules into a Google spreadsheet. Now I find Google spreadsheets extremely useful. They're easy to use. This one can calculate exactly like Rivet. So I've shared the link as well. So you can simply type in the occupancy load table whether or not there's more people on the floor plate or not. And on the right hand side, it'll show you whether you've gone over or under the occupancy. So that's for non-Rivet users, such as maybe if you had a school that wasn't going to model their building, they could simply open up this schedule, type in their own areas, their own room names, and put in the number of students in the classroom on a particular day. So it might help just progress that feature. So I'm going to move on to GDPR. That was a question we got stuck with from the very beginning. How are you going to collect the data? So most people develop QR codes for processes in construction these days. We have our own QR system for a lot of things. But our commitment was to keep most of the stuff on the CDE, so it can be password protected, and most of our staff's details would be saved there anyways. So we had a huge database of staff and subcontractors that we could use. So the data collected, you can also use COVID-19 tracing forms. Google, I find very useful using Google Forms to get this data, which you can send out in emails to everyone, and then it automatically records it in Google spreadsheets. So the CDE that we have, one of our CDEs, should I say, is Procore. Normally we use Procore to develop QR codes for room locations. But for COVID-19, we came up with a solution of creating QR codes for people, individual people. So simply by taking the data that we had in our databases on Procore for our subcontractors, we input them and Procore gives us our QR codes. And you'll see why they're used in a second. So in order to do this effectively on the site, you have to have some way of recording the QR codes that people have assigned to them at the gate when they come in. So what we do is we have several apps, free apps pretty much, and one of them has a basic fee, but it's very basic. And you can upload your data into that. So the first thing you must do though is there's a website called Avery Labels. You can easily put your data in for every person on the site into that. It creates a unique QR code in here as well. And then the scanners simply scan people as they come in to site. And then it's all recorded on a Google spreadsheet. So there's no manual typing in or writing in names. So I'm just going to quickly play this. I'm conscious of time. So this is it in action on the right-hand side. You can see the Google spreadsheet. That's where all the names will be assigned. On the right-hand side here, you can see an image of what the model does. So there's a porta cabin, and it has the iPads and phones attached to it. So the scanner, in the meantime, is working on that. So you simply set your settings, and it's just quickly going through the settings. You pick your spreadsheet on Google. You set the scanner to scan continuously. You stick it onto the porta cabin facing out, so that when someone with the sticker on their hard hat comes up to the scanner, it'll automatically click and scan. And there you have David Clossy. He's the IT manager in our organization. He's been scanned, and that scanned in automatically fills out in the Google spreadsheet. So there it gives him a time and a date, and it also geolocates his position. So it tells me what site he's on at any one time. Now you can also put in temperature data and other bits of data if you feel necessary. So that's the main crux of what we're trying to get. So as everyone comes in, they're scanned on entry, and this is scanned on exit. So that's the scans. And I quickly scanned my QR codes that was on the CIF's website for the induction, and it simply brought in the data very efficiently. So this is just a picture of the 360-degree camera on top of the hard hat. There's the QR code, that's the site entry QR code. And on the back of the helmet, you have the site, the Procore QR code, which we use for health and safety issues. So I'm going to quickly move on. This is the 360-degree cameras. We're also using these to track day-to-day activity on site, but we're going to track day-to-day activity due to COVID concerns. So if we see any signage that needs to be updated on site, we'll record the site, and you can do a split screen here, compare days that things have been progressed. And that's the porta cabin in the background that you've seen in the model. That'll have the iPads and the phones attached to it. That'll do the scanning process as people enter the site and exit the site. So it's a little bit cumbersome to set up, but it seems to be working fairly well at the moment. So quickly in conclusion, I think BIM can be a positive force to better equip our AEC professionals with tools and processes to fight COVID-19. AEC professionals can access and control occupancy levels on site and in the office, depending on whether you're a designer or a site manager. So non-Revit users such as shopkeepers and publicans could use the spreadsheet that's been developed here to not make it more digital, in recording people on and off their premises, and be easier for contact tracing then if something does come up. It can also be linked hopefully to the government's QR code. The QR code could be linked to the government's COVID-19 app that most people have downloaded. So clear GDPR guidelines must be followed, and everyone must be shown and told exactly what's involved when they do sign up to this. That's just a consideration. And cheap QR codes, scanners. I pretty much did all this from trial and cheap free apps. Obviously, Rivet would be more the designers, but there's plenty of methods to get this done if it was rolled out in schools and colleges, if they wanted to model their buildings per se and just do this process themselves with free student licenses. So new methods of tracking and site using 3D cameras. I think the 3D cameras speak for themselves. I've watched lots of videos in this conference that showed the 3D cameras, what they can do, and we think they're a game changer. So I'd like to just thank everyone for listening, and I'll hand you back to David. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Very interesting to see how technology has been applied to deal with COVID-19, and you know, I suppose using software that's already existing and researching new software. It's very good. So we're going to hold on till the end for questions. So I'm going to introduce our next speaker, who is Enda Gerathy. He's the BIM manager with John Sisk and Son. Enda graduated from GMIT in 2014 with a degree in architectural technology. He's over 7 years of experience on BIM projects with engineering consultancies and in the construction sector. He joined John Sisk in 2015, and he started as a BIM engineer on one of Ireland's first public works contracts with BIM Level 2 requirements. Enda was a key member of the team involved in achieving the BRE BIM Level 2 accreditation for John Sisk's, and ensures the company's approach to digital project delivery is implemented across its projects. Enda is currently the BIM lead for Ireland South, West and North business units with Sisk's. So I'll just hand you over now to Enda, who's going to talk to us about digital project delivery on Bonham Quay in Galway. Okay, Enda.
Thanks a million, David. I'll just share screen here now. Now, I hope everyone can see my screen there. So, again, thanks a million, David, and I suppose thanks CitA for having me speak at this online event. So, as David mentioned there, just in the bio, my name's Enda Gerathy. I'm the BIM lead for Ireland South, West and North with Sisk. And I suppose I'm just going to run through what we call within CIS digital project delivery, and I'm going to go through, I suppose, how we implemented that on our project here in Galway, Bonham Quay. So I suppose just a quick overview on the agenda. So as I said, we'll go through digital project delivery, and I suppose the breakdown for that really is we've broken it down into information management, innovative technology, and I suppose BIM. And then I'll go into Bonham Quay, and I'll give a quick overview of that project itself, and then I suppose how we implemented BIM on that, I suppose any innovative tech that we've implemented on that as well, and then just one slide then on, I suppose, the few changes that we had to do and implement on that project due to COVID-19, and finally just finish up with a few benefits then of digital project delivery. So I suppose, as I said, digital project delivery enables the digitization of the processes in which our projects are designed, constructed and handed over through collaboration and innovative technology. So then just this icon there, I suppose it just kind of goes through the split of DPD then within Sisk. As I said, we've split it up between information management, building information modeling and innovative technology. So obviously the information management section will be, I suppose, our common data environment or field data capture. Innovative tech, then the likes of just cameras or 360 cameras and the likes of that. And then obviously a BIM are different dimensions of BIM. So CISC Dpd Key Objectives was consistent. We try to implement a consistent approach in using BIM and IM across all projects. Enhance staff digital capabilities and knowledge. So obviously we'll do this through training, just making sure that I suppose everyone has the right training for I suppose these new digital implementations that are on the job. We obviously don't want to overload our site teams. So this I suppose was a gradual process, at least from when I started in CISC anyway, over the last 5 years. I suppose we didn't just go onto the jobs and try and I suppose hit the guys on the jobs with I suppose each and every single one of these at once. We started building it up slowly. So like we would have just started with the likes of our common data environment, which we've chosen Viewpoint for Projects. I suppose that's our chosen one for the organization. And that then is that's implemented across every single job on CISC. So it doesn't matter how big or how small that project is, our common data environment is implemented on that. And then as well, just the likes of BIM. So obviously we would have just started with the likes of 3D, getting the guys on site, the engineers, the contracts managers, the QSs. I suppose just giving them the training with Navisworks, Freedom, so that they can open the model, they can interrogate the model, they can take information from it, whether it's quantities or whether it's just a wall type they want to figure out. But I suppose that they're able to open that model themselves and interrogate it and take the information that I suppose might help them or maybe missing on a drawing or something. So it's just I suppose to ensure that there's a good flow on the jobs. So if I just move on then, so then the breakdown, as I said, the common data environment, as we said, or as I said, it's a Viewpoint for Projects for us. Then if you have a look there at the diagrams on the left of the screen there, you'll see, I suppose, with the common data environment and without the common data environment, the correspondence flow. So I suppose without a CD, we'd have emails, all sides, maybe someone isn't copied in it, other people are emailing, I suppose, people that don't need to be. The idea of the common data environment is that I suppose we have all that project information in a single source that I suppose everyone can see the latest revision. And then we have workflows in as well to just go through, I suppose, what's been uploaded, do a quality check and make sure that that's the right information that the guys in site, I suppose, need. And that we, I suppose, the information that we need at the right time as well, then just to make sure that I suppose we can get items either procured on time or line up, I suppose, contractors when they need to be. And then I suppose the second part of that is the field data capture tool, which is, I suppose, a sister company to Viewpoint for Projects, which is FieldView. And I suppose this is essentially, we'll do our snag lists on it. We'll fill out our form, so that this is all through the tablet. I suppose it's getting rid of the old pen and paper way. I suppose it's trackable, and then you'll see there in the middle, we can produce dashboards for reporting. So I suppose we can see when an item is possibly opened and when it's closed. So it really is, I suppose, just speeding up the likes of that field data, I suppose, information that could be missed either through the old processes of what used to be the pen and paper. And then onto innovative tech. So I suppose here's just a few examples of, I suppose, what we are either looking into. It's not specifically on every single job, but I suppose it's what we're looking into to see that we can either implement any of them on the jobs. So the likes of setting out through BIM, I suppose the majority of our jobs now, at least over 90%, there's models available. So we can actually take the models and use them for, I suppose, setting out on site. Virtual reality, I suppose maybe we've used this on a few jobs to either engage with the public, I suppose give them a feel for what the job is going to be like, and also maybe a few safety demonstrations as well. Photogrammetry, I suppose we're using this in a few data center projects. Interactive touchscreens, these are becoming more, I suppose, common on sites now, and I might go through that a bit later. I have a slide on that. The likes of 360 cameras as well. We're also doing virtual site walks, which again I have a slide on this later on, but I suppose this is becoming more and more of a requirement now due to COVID-19. I suppose it reduces the need for everyone to come down to site. I suppose have a packed meeting room that I suppose we can do a virtual site walk with the contracts manager, site engineer, walking the site through MS Teams, and they can, I suppose, see what's happening live on site. And then as well, drones, I suppose we're using these on the majority of jobs as well now, just to do either monthly progress reporting. So it just gives everyone, the client, design team and everything, just a good update on the project as well. And finally then, BIM is kind of our final section of the DPD. So obviously we have the fully coordinated design 3D models and models produced by the subcontractors. We're implementing 4D planning and construction sequencing, I suppose, on a lot of our jobs. I suppose just to, I might touch on that then again a bit later on, and then advanced communication and visualization. So the likes of just using the model, I suppose, to get these visualizations, I suppose, show the client maybe what it's going to look like when it's finished. And I suppose essentially all these elements, they're all kind of being implemented on the job to, I suppose, reduce wasted time and I suppose reduce the costs on the job as well. So here I'll go on to the Bonham Quay project then in Galway. So I'll just let this video play and I'll talk over a few bits. So this is just some drone image, and then this is some 3D visualizations of the current phase. So the client is Edward Developments. I suppose the site itself will be 35,000 meters squared. I suppose once it's fully complete, that's over 2 phases. What you're seeing here in the video at the moment is the current phase, which is 2 office blocks, block B and C. So then just to do this video as well, so we have the Revit models from the designers. We've taken these models then and we've brought them into Lumium, where we were able to, I suppose, export out some of these 3D visualizations of the job. So then just in this part here, you'll see then that's showing now the overall complete phases, or the final phases for the job, which is an extra 2 blocks. And I suppose that'll consist of primarily office space as well, with some retail and I think restaurant space as well. But as I said, just the current phases are the front 2 blocks that you see there on the video now. And then this is just some time-lapse camera as well that we have, which Evercam have done, and I will go on and we can have a look at a bit on that on a slide later on. So then just I suppose a quick overview of 3D BIM on the project. So we obviously have the architectural model, structural model and the MEP model from the designers, and then that MEP model is broken down into mechanical and electrical. I suppose with the contractors, there's a few specialist models in there as well. So I suppose these are all then federated in together, and we have our design reviews, our clash detection. We also do logistics planning, health and safety reviews, hazard identification, and visualization and walkthroughs. So we all do all these through the 3D BIM coordination meetings, and I suppose we record any issues or that. So on this slide here, then. We've implemented Bimco Lab Bcf Manager across all our projects. So BCF Manager is essentially an online cloud-based platform that has plugins for both Navisworks and Revit. I suppose this is probably a bit of a game changer, I suppose, in how we're kind of managing the coordination process within CISC. I suppose it's the old way that we would have dealt with it. A lot of it would have been on either Excel sheets or just Word documents, I suppose, recording any of the issues. But here, it allows us to go into the model. If we see an issue or if we have a clash, we can either import all the clashes, we can mark up the views, and we just synchronize it then, and all these views go back up onto the server, and then anyone else who has access to that can either view them online. They can use the plugin either for Revit, and they can go to the same view that's been either created by ourselves or someone in the design team. They can go to that, click on that same view, and it'll bring them to the view within Revit. So I suppose it's just a more streamlined process for the clash detection, and it just allows them to be able to make the changes there, and they can add comments on it and synchronize it back. And then I suppose that's just it's just a more kind of collaborative approach. But I suppose the clash detection process within Navisworks itself, I suppose it's good. It can be a bit laborious, but I suppose this Bimco Lab, it really kind of streamlines the process. So that has been a huge, I suppose, help for us. Then on to 4D planning then as well, which we have implemented on the job. So this is just a quick video, I suppose, of the early days, the bulk dig, and you'll see some of the slabs. So I suppose at CISC, we've invested heavily in 4D, in the 4D platform, which is Synchro. I suppose the real benefits of it is I suppose that it really provides a more informed, I suppose, building process. I suppose we can see the areas or the breakdown of the slab, or the breakdown of the areas that are being worked in. So and then we can add in, I suppose, the likes of our logistics and our the likes of formwork or the likes of hazard identification into the timeline. So it really does give a kind of a far more informed construction process, I suppose, for everyone involved. And I suppose as well, then there are going to be a few dedicated 4D planners which join in the team as well. So I suppose this is just going to be something that we're going to be implementing across the majority of our projects going forward. On the 5D BIM side then as well, just a quick overview of a few things that we have done on Bonham Quay regarding that. So the likes of the first image there on the top, you'll see that there was quite a substantial bulk dig that had to be done for the basement on this project. So we were able to actually use the survey information that we got from the guys on site. We brought that into Revit, and we're able to, I suppose, produce cut and fills of the different, I suppose, digs, figure out the rock levels, figure out approximate meters cubed of rock breaking that's needed, and approximate meters cubed of the overall dig. Just so I suppose the likes of the QSs on site, that they, I suppose, kind of had a good knowledge of the figures that were actually coming out on site, and I suppose it just allowed for better planning on the project as well. So similar then as well for the structural steel, we were able to get all that information from the model. So then the QSs could actually take this information and then they could go out to the different manufacturers or contractors for the structural steel with good figures, I suppose, and good understanding of, I suppose, the meterage and tonnage of the steel needed for the job to, I suppose, make the cost, I suppose, analysis or the cost for that package, that they had a good understanding of it. And then I suppose onto the innovative tech side of it then as well for the project. So we have interactive touchscreens. These are used for daily whiteboards and logistics planning. And we have time-lapse cameras from Evercam and drone footage as well, which is done by a third party. But I suppose with the daily whiteboards, the camera mightn't seem like, I suppose, it's that much of an innovative technology, but like we've taken these cameras, it's used on the interactive touchscreen for the daily whiteboards. So I suppose that each daily whiteboard, it's been marked up, I suppose, relative to how the site is looking at the moment. So it just allows for a far better planning process as well. And I just want, I might go on to just share the actual, the Evercam itself, the online platform. So this is the Evercam here. So this is a live camera, and you can see there that it gives a live feed of the project. I can go on to the recordings then as well. So I can actually go back to, say if we want to go back to another date, maybe in September or that, we can click on any of the days. It'll bring up, I suppose, what the site looked at that time. So it's essentially it's essentially a daily diary nearly for the project as well. So it's definitely reducing, I suppose, the amount of workload that the guys on site have to do with, I suppose, infill and maybe a daily diary that I suppose they can actually use this tool. The likes of the QSs as well, they can go on to something maybe they want to take just a count maybe the, I suppose, maybe the amount of rebar or something that's gone in on the job, that they can actually use this camera as well, and I suppose it reduces the need, I suppose, maybe to make the journey down on site, especially if the weather is bad, which in Galway it is often as well. So I'll just go back then to the PowerPoint presentation. And then just lastly, a quick slide on, I suppose, the digital changes that we had to implement due to COVID-19. So I suppose CISC supported the CIF guidance documents for SOP and VDC remote working. And then there's just a few changes on the actual setup then as well. I think everyone knows that we obviously have to bring in the temperature monitoring stations. So I suppose we just created this video as well in Lumion just during the lockdown, so that we're prepared for when we got back on site, that I suppose we could just circulate this video and give everyone a good understanding of maybe the few changes just to something like the setup on site, so that they're aware, I suppose, what the story was once they returned to site. And then I suppose all our coordination meetings, they're through MS Teams as well, and the likes, as I said earlier on, the virtual site walks, so they're through MS Teams, where two of the guys, they walk the site with the camera, and then you have the design team and the client in the MST call, or the MS Teams call, and they can see, I suppose, what's happening on site, and I suppose it's just a good way of doing the progress reporting. And then I think I'm just on time maybe. The digital project delivery benefits, I suppose, just a quick summary of it. Just implementing, I suppose, these two things. I suppose it's given us good cost savings or cost avoidance, if you want to call it, on projects. So we're eliminating the number of clashes that we find on site by clash detection. We're eliminating, I suppose, wasted time by making unnecessary trips down to site by using the live cameras, and I suppose we're using the likes of the field data capture tools to, again, I suppose, just to save some time on, I suppose, the workflows that we had, I suppose, or the traditional methods. Then as well, just the likes of public engagement using 3D visualizations, collaborative working, obviously the CDE, using Viewpoint for project, program certainty, then as well with 4D BIM, so taking the program in and I suppose being able to interrogate that for, I suppose, a more informed and more detailed planning process. And I said then just to increase in productivity. So that's it for me. I just want to say thanks, and I'll hand you back then to David.
Enda, thank you very much. It's always very interesting to see how the modern building site is changing and evolving and advancing. It's really interesting. So we'll just keep going with the presentations, and again, as I say, we will have time for questions at the end, okay? So our next speaker is David Purdon. David is going to speak to you on real-time collaboration and visualization case studies using Unity, Reflect, and Unity Pro. David is a qualified industrial designer and building technologist and an Autodesk professional user in private practice since 1994. He transitioned to the Autodesk channel in 2000 as a technical specialist while expanding into IT, cloud computing, and visualization. David is qualified and accredited Autodesk technical software specialist for Revit, 3ds Max, InfoWorks, BIM 360, Dynamo, Navisworks, and Civil 3D. That's a lot. And certified in BIM through RICS. David's primary focus is helping clients in the AEC sector with technology implementation and to enable BIM and digital project delivery requirements. And David is currently Diatec's Autodesk Applications and Digital Project Delivery Manager. So I'll just hand you over to David there now.
Hi David, can you hear me okay?
David, okay, yeah, perfect.
Okay, I'm just sharing my screen. Can you see it okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, good afternoon everyone. As mentioned there, my name is David Purdon. I'm the Technical Implementation Specialist Manager for Diatec. And my presentation today is on real-time collaboration, visualization, case studies for using Unity. So I just want to kick off the start of this by kind of setting the premise of the kind of main talking point of my presentation today. We've seen a massive change and influx of the influences of the technology that we find within the AEC and the construction sector. And they're coming from a vast range of different industries outside of the traditional norms of the AEC space. We're seeing the methodologies and capabilities within the gaming environments starting to apply to the AEC industry. We're seeing the processes of production and quality starting to pervade from film and digital animation. And also over the last 10 years plus, we've seen the process engineering, the process methodology of the automotive and process engineering environments start to influence the AEC space quite readily. But technology evolves rapidly. So I'm involved in the Autodesk, I'm involved in software and technology, but I'm also a big gamer. And if you go back 20 years, the big game of the day was Doom. We move into present day, the latest kind of AAA game is Destiny 2 Beyond Light. The quality and the fidelity of the visuals and the capability of the engines that run these technologies is night and day. You can apply the same logic to something like the design industry. So if you look at AutoCAD Release 13 and you would compare it to, say, Revit 2021, it's night and day. So technology is evolving, and the capabilities of what we can do with technology is also evolving. So what I'm going to kind of look at today is how that evolving technology is influencing how we interact with each other, how we collaborate, and how we use information in multiple different ways. So here we have an example from the company IKEA, who are using augmented reality technology to allow potential customers to place digital representations of the product lines directly in the context of the environment that we currently live in. And from here, you can move things around, you can see how something fits in a space, or more accurately, doesn't fit in a space, before you go and make that investment in producing that. And this is around the area of how we buy and purchase products digitally. And because we're moving to a more e-commerce type society, especially over the last few months, the tools and the capabilities of the tools has to evolve to the demand and the need going forward. And construction isn't any different. We're seeing the change in what's real and what's not, and the lines are becoming blurred in terms of being able to interpret. So we have two images on the screen here, one on the left, one on the right, and they just look like two photographs. But the reality is that the quality and the capability of the technology is at a point now where it's hard to distinguish one from the other. The key thing to remember in this, however, is that the Unity and the gaming technology that underpins the technological capabilities is based on real time. So these aren't pre-factored and pre-rendered photographs. This is an interactive experience with that high level of capability. So this is where we can kind of start to move into the kind of the high-end visual side of things. But what I really want to focus on is not so much on high-end graphics and high-end capability, but uses of information and cases of how we can use information in different ways and how we can put it into the hands of people who don't have access to the design tools or the various different technologies that are out currently today. But it's also about how we change that experience. So from augmented reality and mixed reality, we have the ability to bring the digital into the physical and interact with it in the same way as if we were actually with the physical object. So with technology like things like HoloLens, for example, we can use the Unity engine and we can create really kind of rich user interfaces and user experiences. And we can interact with things in a similar way that we would with the actual physical assets. With the advances in camera technology and camera tracking technology, we can put digital assets and place them directly on the physical context and move around them as if they were actually invading our actual physical space. So augmented reality, mixed reality is becoming a huge area that a lot of clients that I talk to are starting to invest a lot of time and effort into. But what it really boils down to over time is context. You know, what are we doing this for? So it could be for training. So rather than give people access to, safety concerns in terms of being on site, how do people learn their trades and their crafts? So we can use augmented reality, we can use gaming engines to help people learn the skills necessary to do their jobs and to train people up. But we can also use it for insight, so we can pull information from the site context, bring it back into our offices or our homes, which is kind of pertinent today, and give people access to that information readily. We can update it in a very quick fashion. And using gaming technology, which is designed to really kind of optimize the experience and to optimize the data underneath, gives it a very rich kind of layer to the possibilities of what can be done. Sorry, I'll just turn that down a bit. So we partnered with Unity 12 months ago, and their original out-of-the-box solution was a tool called Unity Reflect that sits as an intermediary between their full development platform, which is Unity Pro. The key element of Unity Reflect is the ability to share collaboratively in real time actual live design data, but to push it out to any device, to any person, so they can see the changes and they can comment and they can collaborate in real time. So it allows you to create a live link between Revit and then share that on a viewer experience on a multitude of devices, where it be a laptop or in this case a tablet, for example. And we can then place the model onto a physical location like a table and walk around it and look at it from any angle we want. We can manipulate it. We can then interrogate the BIM data that's contained. So what we're trying to achieve with this type of approach is to really can allow multiple people to access the data at a very early stage on essentially any device that they have access to, that they find comfortable in using that information. But how it really works is essentially there's a plugin that sits in your design environment. There's then two particular options that you have in terms of how you set up that relationship between yourself and your target audience. It could be in-house through a Revit server connection that sits on the design side of the proposition, or you can reflect it out to a cloud-based server that Unity will host on your behalf. And then you can then publish that out as a one-to-many scenario, Where this is quite innovative is across a multitude of devices. So on the right here, we have Windows, we have Apple, we have iOS, we have Android, we have Google Cardboard, we've got HoloLens, we've got AR for tablets, we've got Oculus, there's Rift, and there's even the capability, if you wanted to later on down the line by using Unity Pro, you can push it out to essentially any device that allows you to host or visualize the data in many ways. So the actual Unity Reflect out-of-the-box solution allows you to create this live link, which allows you to then move around your environment in the same way you'd move around a gaming environment. You can pan, you can zoom, you can pick points of interest, you can select objects, you can measure them, you can bring up their BIM data, and then you can start to interrogate specific elements of it. So straight out of the box, this is essentially the solution. So it's a very two-step approach to getting interactive BIM out to the masses without a major overhead in terms of technical capability or understanding. But for some clients, it's about moving that forward. So technology can either be a leveler or it can be a differentiator for many clients that we deal with. The implementation of BIM and implementation of process has become a bit of a level playing field in terms of framework and structure. What clients are trying to look for now are ways to kind of really kind of differentiate themselves in terms of their service provision and their capabilities in terms of what those services are that they provide, but having it in a very kind of lean and structured way where there's a consistent approach with a consistent outcome at the end. So by taking the Reflect technology and using Unity Pro, we can extend that functionality further. Pardon me. So what does that mean? So now we can start to look at case studies of how we're looking to leverage the BIM capabilities of the design tools and really kind of put it into a concept of capability about how people interact and use that information, and then using the Unity technology to provide that to a mass audience with a relatively low level of additional cost, if any, requirements. So we can take our BIM data and we can do one-to-one AR on any mobile device. Particularly, it's a good experience on tablets, and that could be Apple or Android. And by doing that, it allows us to create the context of the design within the boundaries of the surroundings of where the design will take place. So we can then very quickly, within about 2 or 3 clicks, allow a user to go to a particular site, scan a barcode, and it drops them in at 1:1 scale. And again, without having any kind of gaming technology understanding or having any advanced capabilities of understanding, we can do that at a very, 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 very quick rate. It's a basically a three-click process, and you're in the model, in context, at scale, and able to move around it in a safe manner using a mobile device like a tablet, for example. The other ability that we're looking at is how we look at the whole aspect of up-to-date real-time information. So with Unity Pro, we can take point cloud information and scans. It could be from drones, it could be from any type of capture device, and we can start to bring that data in very quickly and navigate around the models at a very kind of high fidelity and high rate. But again, those scans can be constantly done on a constant basis, and that information can be pushed out to the engine, and users can then start to interact and move around things and actually get a feel for the sense of scale. They can verify and validate certain aspects, and we can also then extend that capability by allowing people to interact with the information at hand. So we can put in a new usability. So we can look at certain aspects of it. We can change the clarity of the model. We can select things. We can do cross sections, for example, and we can look at just certain aspects of it in the context of the physical model and the point cloud information. So again, we're really looking at how we extend how information that is captured can be enhanced. It can be put in a situation where there's an extended usability to it, and then push that out as a way of actually using information more clearly. So just a couple other ones here to go through. So here we have an extract of a construction sequencing, which can be taken from any tool that you currently do it with. And we're now able to take it into Unity Pro, and we can now create a bespoke visualization tool, which we can then push out to anyone, which will allow us then to plug in that visualization sequencing and push it out to our viewing tool of on any device that we decide that we want to push it to. And then as that sequencing is changed over time, we can then very quickly just update the schedule and have it update the actual visualization very, very quickly, because it's all done in real time. And again, I'm kind of conscious of not showing a lot of kind of high-end, high-spec visuals, because one of the things that's very clear when we're talking to clients about the case study side of it is that they're more concerned about the actual context of the information that's being conveyed as much as they are about the visuals as well. So construction sequencing is one that we're working with a client as a proof of concept. Another one is the ability to visualize clashes for people who maybe don't have access to Navis Manage or other clash management tools. So here we're taking the Unity Reflect and Unity Pro environment, and we're combining the two of them together to allow us to essentially visualize and create a digital model that will then verify and validate the clashes that have been found within the digital design. And again, this is just extending the capabilities that are found within the main tool set of Unity Reflect and its viewer, and using Unity Pro to extend and enhance that for a specific business purpose. And for a lot of the clients that we're talking to who are adopting the technology, it's been around changing it. But again, because it's based on gaming technology, at the end of the day, it's about gamification. It's about utilizing the mechanics and the capabilities that make people enjoy games and applying that in a business context. So this is just a silly example, taking a BIM model and throwing a gun in there so you can start shooting stuff. But it gives you the idea that, you know, you're only limited by the business case and the proof of concept case that you're trying to achieve. The technology is now available now where we can start to add in a more interactive user experience and not really be restricted to the specifics of the particular tools that we have to hand. One of the things that really kind of stands out from Unity's perspective is that it's really an ability to create your own tools and to create your own purposes for those tools to reside within. So my presentation today was really about two things. One was to talk about the advances in technology and how gaming has influenced, and the gaming engines have influenced the changes that we're seeing currently in the construction industry. The ability to create an immersive experience that's been heavily influenced by the immersive and emotive experiences that we get from film and underlying technologies and methodologies that reside in that, but also then really being very conscious of the processes of what the functions and the proof of concepts and the actual overall tools that we're trying to build are based on a fundamental understanding of the information, the context, and the people of the target audience, but without forgetting about the processes that drive that information and how frequently the information changes. One of the things that gaming technology, and Unity in particular, gives is the ability to really change and have the ability to reflect change very, very quickly without there having to be a whole preload of having to re-render and post-render things. So I hope that kind of gives you an idea of how this technology is and will influence how you interact with the information going forward. If anybody has any questions, obviously we'll be taking them in the session, but if anybody wants to have a chat about things offline or understand or get access to the technology, feel free to reach out and we can kind of talk about that in more detail. And with that, I'll hand it back to David.
Thank you, David. Very fascinating stuff. I think you're onto something with the gun inside the BIM model there. It might come in useful. Yeah, it's I suppose it's a reminder to everybody in the construction industry as well. Just, you know, look outside the industry. I mean, what's going on in gaming and in retail and with all the advances in augmented reality and how it can be applied to our own industry is always fascinating to me. So that concludes our presentations. I think we'll all agree they were very good, and we'd like to thank the presenters, David, Enda, and Cathal, for your time and your effort. So I'm going to open up the floor there now to questions. So if you want to unmute your mic and ask a question, or if you want to bang it in the chat, we can deal with it that way as well. So just briefly, I suppose, while people are getting their thoughts together, I just had a question myself for Enda on the camera, the Ever camera on site. Is it just the one camera you have, or is it multiple angles? You know, with a large site like that.
No, we do. There's two cameras, so we one camera on the tower crane, which kind of gives a better overview. That'll probably be the one that the lads primarily use. It's a plan view, and then we have the second one, which is kind of across the road. That's the one that I had up there. Yeah. So.
Okay. Yeah, very good. Very good. Just curious. And would you get requests to move them at all, or they're kind of fixed, are they?
Well, we haven't had to. No.
Yeah.
We haven't had to. So I suppose we're not too bad. No. But maybe now that it's up on the top floors, and we might have to start moving it. All right.
Yeah, I was just curious, as the project progressed, you know, would you need to move them because certain elements of the building are now in the way of other elements and so on?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so. So just a question there in the chat. Is the camera footage available to the client?
Good question. I actually don't know if they have access to it or not. I just know that we do. So I suppose I don't know. Yeah, I'm not too sure.
Okay. I'll be giving clients ideas.
Yeah. You're good and a bad thing. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. If anybody else has any questions.
Hi, it's Keith Elliott here.
How are you doing, Keith?
Just wondering, I made a comment in the chat there about the how we can really only get the best out of these technologies if there's full collaboration and everybody's bought in, and particularly early engagement of contractors to me is such a huge win-win for the projects. I'm just wondering, how have CISC, for example, or Stewart's found, has that changed? Is there more early engagement, and is it significantly different in the private sector than the public sector?
Yeah, if you want, I'll answer a bit of that there. So maybe just starting with the last bit you said there, that I suppose that there I think in the private sector there is far more engagement with early, with the contractors early. I suppose a lot of the jobs here, I suppose, particularly the traditional build jobs, I suppose there still is a bit of a lacking of that in early engagement. I suppose once we just get appointed, we're kind of, maybe if you want to call it, thrown into the deep end. We're trying to kind of go from there. Where I suppose like a lot of, we do have kind of a few clients that we would do repeat business with, and if there is new projects that I suppose they always bring on the contractor early. I suppose we're in there with the design team as well. So like even during the design reviews and all that, there would be contractor representation in there. And it just smooth lines, I suppose, the process or the transition from design to construction. So I suppose it's just the knowledge from the guys who are physically out on site, either doing the work and all that. So I suppose they can give their input or maybe make some suggestions that either streamline the install, like either, or maybe reducing some costs, like value engineering as well. So yeah, I suppose it's a bit hit and miss across some jobs. Like some are great, but I think there still is a bit to go. I think anyway.
Yeah, to me, it's a huge missed opportunity if you don't have that early engagement, because you guys are really embracing the technology in every aspect, from design interpretation right through to safety and security on site. So, you know, I feel that projects, designers, clients, everybody involved is missing a trick if they don't leverage that potential early on. And I can see, particularly with the traditional procurement routes, that bigger corporations and certainly the public sector, I could see that being a problem. And it's maybe a message that something that CitA could work on, trying to get that message out there.
Just from Stuart's point of view, I'd agree with Enda. There needs to be, and yourself, there needs to be very early engagement with contractors and subcontractors, because the bulk of the knowledge is there. And unless a client gets, either public or private, gets the contractor in at the pre-planning or planning stages to help with the direction that a project is going to take, and probably the costs analysis at tender, you're missing out on a huge chunk of workload that could be you know, progressed very early, and it will save a huge amount of cost. I know it's kind of a holdback on letting the contractor in. There's a bit of a fear of letting the contractor in that early, but if you had a proper tendering process and procedures that help that, it would make our projects, let's say, I'd say 50 to 60% more productive, because you'd have huge amounts of data and information. The reason I'm always focused on it is the BIM side of it. If you can align all your elements to your technical submittals, even at very, very early tender stage, directed from the client's team for design build, you can progress the build very, very easily with little or very little upset during the job. The issues are kind of washed away. So that's just my opinion on it. But I don't see a huge uptake of it at the moment. There are a few of our clients that are very good and have brought us in very early, but we'd like to be early in on nearly all jobs, to be fair, with a BIM model preferably.
So what we need to do is get the clients that are bought in to tell all their friends in the client community that it was a good thing.
Yeah. Spread the word.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Keith. Cheers. Okay, we've a couple of minutes left, so if anybody does have any further questions, don't be shy.
Hi everyone, just want Alan Hoare here.
Hi,
from
Alan.
TU Dublin. How are you? Just to say thank you to everyone this afternoon. Thanks, David, for doing a great job on the chair. I have to admit I missed Cathal's contribution, but I agree with everything he said there. A lot of the other regional meetings this week, there was a lot of discussion surrounding the need for procurement reform in construction and earlier contractor involvement. I know there was some discussions around modern methods of construction and the need to think much earlier about this in the process. Really enjoyed Enda's presentation. It just shows you how much, as you said, how much sites have progressed. I mean, as a former contractor's QS, I'd see the technologies being used really helpful, you know, in preparing valuations, you know, just from a visualization point of view, very powerful, isn't it? What the CIS team are doing, and I'm sure other contractors are doing at the moment. And David, always nice to hear your contribution as well, and to hear about Unity and Autodesk and all the cool stuff that's going on there. So, no, really enjoyed this afternoon, and just to thank everyone for this week, and to you, David, for your work. I think there's nearly 50 odd people here today, so it's great, you know, very encouraging for the next year as well, you know.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, just a question there in the chat. Where do you see clients' resistance to BIM implementation, granted that contractor brought on so late? Great, okay. So if anyone wants to take up that, where do you see clients' resistance to BIM implementation? I suppose cost, resources, you know.
Just from my point of view, the few clients that have been engaged in the BIM process on our side, they've been very good at implementing BIM and sticking to to the protocols that are required, and they stipulate that we have to deliver to the level 2 requirements that was when the job started. But where the resistance might be the cost, it would be a main focus at tender stage, because this process is complicated, and the professionals needed to do the process correctly from the very start does add cost at the start. But with experience, stewards and other contractors have seen that those costs are far less than the costs if you do something wrong on a site, or the client has missed something in their design team, if it's design builds that we've picked up on early. It can really reduce the costs during a build. So I think BIM is well publicised as being a huge cost saving throughout the full project. But that initial stage at tender, and even with subcontractors, everyone's very wary that it's a complicated exercise, and they think it adds more jobs to people on the site. But I find that it hasn't. During a job, it completely mitigates an awful lot of mistakes, things that are missed, and helps everyone to see everything from the very beginning. That's just my point of view.
So it would be fair to say it does front load some of the work, but the benefits of that is huge.
Yeah, that's what I find. Anyways.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Maybe sometimes it could be just to do with maybe a lack of knowledge around BIM as well from the client side. So, like, you know, if they get, I suppose, a bit of training, or even just a session, I suppose, understanding, I suppose, how BIM can improve the project for them. It could be just as simple as that. I suppose even just from a CISC point of view, whether it's a requirement on the job or not, that CISC implement BIM on any job over 10 million. I suppose, as I said, whether it's a requirement of the job or not, or whether the design team have actually started the job in BIM, that CISC will implement it anyway. So we'll get the drawings transferred over onto the BIM models, just to, I suppose, reduce our own costs or our own risk on the job.
Great stuff.
Sorry, David, I have one question there. I know we're running out of time, but I just wanted to go back maybe 2 steps where we were on questions there a few minutes ago, and it was early contractor engagement, and I am for that, but I just wanted to know, in the public, let's say, procurement, how would the lads from a contractor's point of view suggest that what was the best way to bring in contractors early engagement? Because I worked on the client's side. I'm a QS on the client side, and I suppose we found when we were grading quality for contractors that if they have a good person that can write good English essays, basically, they scored well on their quality, but their quality when they went to site wasn't good. And then we had some contractors that we knew that were good on site that we had on other jobs. Their quality was good on site, they had good workmanship, but they had poor, I suppose, poor submissions on their quality. So how do you get, I suppose, cost certainty at an early stage and good quality on a job? How would you propose getting that at an early stage on a procurement side, or is that a complicated question? Sorry, no. Does that make sense?
I'll try my best to answer that one. First of all, I do see that if you get a contractor in the tender stage, and if they're not fully BIM focused, their presentation won't be up to scratch. And what that means to me is, if you haven't assessed everything in the models prior to your project commencing, or even your quantification of the project, you're in big trouble. So the quality there is based on their BIM presentation from my side. That'll help the client see that they're assured that these contractors have really went into depth, pulled apart all these models and quantified every single part of them, and went into huge detail to showcase this even simulation to us. But even better, if they can showcase the breakdown of their model structure, how they costed any aspects that maybe the clients haven't considered yet. So from my point of view, that's just the best way a client can assume it. But I'm not too sure on the other parts of this question.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's a two-barreled, double-barreled.
Okay. Okay, so guys, we're gone over 2 o'clock there.
Sorry.
So thanks very much for your question, Shane. Again, I'd just like to thank CitA for organising this event, and I'd like to thank the presenters, Cathal, Enda, and David again, and everybody for their questions. And I hope everybody has enjoyed the week. And
yeah, it's been a great week. Yeah.
Thank you very much,
stuff.
David. Thank you, the speaker, and thanks to the sponsor. Thanks to the attendees to attending, and keep in touch with CitA. Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.